Well, greetings, everyone. Adam Blue here. Thanks for joining another episode of Dissection. In this episode, I wanted to actually look at a positive review of Ancient Apocalypse. I know I keep going on about this, but I think there's a lot we can learn from the discourse that has been occurring between detractors and people that are into it. I mean, it just comes from a point which I'm going to actually show here pretty soon, where there's a lot of hypocrisy and contradiction when it comes to people fighting to want to be right about something. First of all, a lot of people just want to say, and it's not just Graham Hancock, but anyone, when they come up with a theory or an idea, it's like, you're wrong. Even going as far as killing people back in the past, shaming them, canceling them, even modern day losing funding for things. There's so many things that can happen to people that want to be able to study something that's on the fringes, but it's society's pressures that stop that from happening and possibly even learning something new. In fact, there shouldn't be anything wrong with wanting to explore something that could be wrong, because if we're able to fund a project that proves something is not true, we're even better for it. But we want to just throw crap at each other for some reason, and it's really annoying. So, looking at this, Joseph Lister recommended that surgical instruments be sterilized between operations, when people are like, no, there's no reason for that. There's nothing that could be occurring. And in fact, people were dying because they were being infected due to dirty tools being used, because at the time humans didn't understand that concept. I am sure today there are many concepts we don't understand, so to act like we do. Galileo is accused of heresy. This was a big deal too. I mean, it was going as far as Galileo was ordered to turn himself into the Holy Office to begin trial for holding the belief that the earth revolves around the sun. Oh my God. I mean, think about it back then in the 1600s. In the 1600s, that's not too long ago that humans thought the earth revolved around the sun. And in fact, isn't some super ancient text that actually says otherwise? But yeah, anyway, that's not for this time. But what's interesting is how long it took the church after his death to finally say, yeah, he was right. Poor soul, what he had to deal with then. We're seeing the same thing with Graham Hancock. Are you the church? Are you someone that's a holy church that likes to damn people for their thoughts and beliefs? Think about it. And then the other aspect, too, is, the idea that, we already know how the Egyptians built the pyramids. We know. No, you can look at the Wikipedia article here. Egyptian pyramid construction techniques. It's a controversial subject of many hypotheses, because you know why? We don't know what it is yet. And so for people to say, no, it wasn't that, it was this. So when someone is saying they think it's one way, so Kaylee, History with Kaylee, great channel. And I was curious her thoughts too, because I was actually surprised some of the things that she thought would just be wrong or not true when we really don't know. And a lot of the stuff that she uncovers too kind of points to there being more to our history. So she had brought up on one of her tweets to look up Jean-Pierre Houdin's internal ramp hypothesis. And I was like, if someone like Kaylee is trusting this, then let me read it. But reading through this, the scientific archaeology pyramid community at large, the mainstream kind of thought behind it is that, his hypothesis isn't right. Limestone concrete hypothesis, Nova pyramid. In fact, on my Twitter, I even have where I highlighted his thesis remains unproven. Another thesis, hammers, chisels, and levers. This is a modern shortcut, as the ancient Egyptians were limited to using copper and later bronze. So we're proving right there when someone was saying, we can reproduce how they did it. And then they did it, but they did it with modern tools, not the ancient tools. Really, someone come at me if you've been able to reproduce something to the scale, the size, and to degree of the ancient the pyramids. And then coming down here to this one, considerable amount of discrepancy regarding what type of ramp was used. So they're like making up ramps and what the ramp could be, not even knowing what the ramp could be. The fact that you're coming up with a ramp is wrong in the first place. Yet either run into critiques of functionality and limited archaeology evidence. Again, limited archaeology evidence. Like if you go through the Wikipedia about how the Egyptian pyramids were built, and look, it's not like you should 100% trust Wikipedia anyway, but it's good to take a look at. For just see what's kind of a mainstream theory, yeah. And all through this thing, you could not say for sure with certain, based on research, that there has been an identified proven method for the construction of the pyramids. There's just not yet. And that's okay. That my biggest takeaway from all of this is people are so set that there is one way something was done. Same with Galileo in the church, accusing him of heresy because he thought that the earth revolved around the sun, which was deemed heretical. So nowadays, today, 2022, we are seeing the same things happen to someone like Graham Hancock, who was just giving alternate viewpoints where there's already alternate viewpoints. I'm serious. Anyone that's watching this right now that can point out anything about the pyramid that is set in stone for a fact, this is how it was built. Here's the reproduction, scientific method. And then I would share that. I would love to share that. I mean, that's what I'm looking for. It's just that since there's all these hypotheses and no one agrees on it yet, let's look at new hypotheses. Let's look at a new one like we would look in the future at, the Earth does revolve around the sun. And I thought this review was good because, look, I'm all about positivity. You can disagree with someone, but the way that people have been doing it online, especially calling him a white supremacist, then that just, especially within the community of people that are into this stuff in the first place, it's just sad. It's like I can't even trust anyone that's an archaeologist, anyone that says that they have a PhD or they went to school for this or that, if they're willing to talk down to people, try to cancel them, try to shut them up. If they're spending their time doing that, that means they don't have enough for themselves to spend the time on to research. They've gone nowhere. They've hit a brick wall in the research, so now it's started attacking people that are maybe looking at things differently than them. We are seeing that, and it's pretty sad. So Ancient Apocalypse was released on Netflix earlier this month, and it only took me 2 days to binge the entire series and completely revitalize aspects of my own thesis on the ignorance of humanity and microsociety. You know, that's quite a humbling experience for someone to admit that their own thesis and ignorance has changed. Not many humans can do that. Graham Hancock hosts Ancient Apocalypse, an epic deep dive docuseries into his fairly substantial theory that an elite developed civilization of humans reigned planet Earth prior to the last major cold snap known as the Younger Dryas period. As this sudden cataclysmic event struck, plunging the world into a frozen extended winter, these elite humans traversed the globe to inform hunter-gatherer societies of the potential impending doom and to pass on their knowledge of agriculture, architecture, and other aspects of developed civilization. Now, I pause there for a second because this is just reminding me this is kind of the gist of Graham's thing. And as much as I think that is very interesting and that could be one of the main theories, I'm also open to that's not at all a thing that happened, even though there still was some advanced civilization, but not that at one point teachers went out. Even though there seems to be evidence of that, there seems to be a story that you can tell based on that, which I think says more than just coming up with a theory based on what you think. I mean, remember, myth, the point of a myth that we see in these legends of these ancient cultures around the world, a myth is to tell a story using symbolism in order to get a point across. And we've kind of lost that nowadays, especially with how the English language works. It's very contract-driven, very strict and rigid. It's very hard to be open-minded. And that's why we see a lot of ancient sites, especially in Göbekli Tepe, that are using animal iconography. Because by using simple terms to express ideas, you can give people a thought without having to tell them specifically, like, this is this or this is that. Hancock has plenty of evidence to support his theory that humanity has developed to a form of peak civilization before. So that line right there is, I think, what works for me. Like, you could, like, everything else is really up in the air, and I'm open to it. But just that line, I think, is the line that I would stand firm with. Now, remember, if we want to say humanity went back, or modern humans first appeared 200,000 years ago, some people say it's older, some people say they first started walking upright 1 million years ago. But just think, our current civilization has been about 5,000 years. Think of how many 5,000 years exist within 200,000 years. And we know cycles exist. We can see in the landscape of volcanic action, floods, that there's so many changes to our environment that we can never be in a steady state ecosystem to allow a single species to evolve linearly. There's not been any linear evolution. It's all been dynamic. It changes based on environmental factors, even splinter groups of humans that then kind of form up, and then maybe over a period of even 100 years, even 5,000, even 10,000 years that still share similar DNA can then come back together, reproduce, creating all these different types of modern humans that we wouldn't even know exist. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but the archaeological sites he visits on the show and complete ignorance of modern archaeologists to dig further than a few thousand years into our past suggest he's pretty much on the money as far as his research goes. He's not even the only person to come up with this idea. There's an amazing book called The World Without Us that argues if all humans left Earth right now, it would take less than 10,000 years for every trace of our existence to disappear back into nature. Considering how much of the stuff our version of civilization has created is digital, plastic, pointless, and so easily destroyed by the natural world, it's very easy to believe that humanity has probably been built up and then almost wiped out several times over. the last couple million years. And if a species was to evolve linearly, they would not kind of employ some of the things we do to our environment. I mean, the fact that a lot of our modern technology is due to slave labor, child labor. That had to be learned. That had to be learned to be willing to force others. And so that could be another example of a time when different types of hominins had lived side by side, different enough where then there was this kind of surface level like hatred or surface level difference that they were wanting to then, use people as slaves. But I would say even if a advanced civilization didn't exist in the past, I would not say we are advanced with what we're doing to each other, to animals, to the planet. Anything related to the apocalypse is right up my alley. As all my regular readers know, I'm fairly certain we're heading for a major collapse of modern civilization pretty much any day now, so I found Hancock's work and thesis alarmingly calming. His evidence suggests that elite developed societies collapsed under this global cataclysm, but the hunter-gatherer populations, those who live in unison with the planet, began to truly flourish into what we are today. Yeah, I get so excited and I read this and then I mess up my words, because reading that also brings up another point, that most sites that are caveman sites where we find cave tools, cave paintings, those places are usually outskirts from city center populations where we have megalithic sites. So hunter-gatherers, or those that are considered cavemen, we would see more activity of, because they were off in the caves. There's less going on, where things are going to stay there for a long time. And there's pictographs, are they called? There's some ancient, writing on walls and stuff that are around the world, and that they're very similar. Sometimes it's that swirl that you'll see. Sometimes it's the handprint where the paint went over the hand, so it leaves the hand on there. And a lot of it is using red ochre around the world too. We know that Neanderthals used red ochre. So there's a lot of this that just adds up to ancient knowledge being transferred. And means today that we're not utilizing the earth and instead, doing wrong too. The biggest takeaway from Hancock's epic first docuseries, I do hope there are many more, is just how fragile and redundant so much of what we've created truly is. We forget that this planet, this solar system, doesn't care about the enormous ugly cities we all call home, nor the ease of Amazon shopping, and definitely not about the money we make at the jobs we hate. And that just brings me to my point. Again, it makes me think, what is humanity doing? What are we doing? Shouldn't we as a collective living group on this earth be trying to do what's best for our future? And this is not something I've really thought about until later in my life. Growing up, I'm indoctrinated into the reality that is around me. And so I am just living by that until you start discovering things, and then you find people pushing back on things you discover, and it's like, why? Like psychedelics, for instance, and why meditation is looked down upon. You would make fun of people for meditating. It's pretty crazy. More than that, if the electricity went off and the internet died today, what would you have to show for your life? Would you even have one? You don't have to do hallucinogenic drugs to understand that. Without the natural world, humanity does not exist. Without most of what we've developed in this iteration of civilization, we'd probably be a lot more fulfilled, happy, and loving. And I completely agree. A lot of these things I've had to do on my own, or with help from people that also understand this is meditation, this is psychedelics. Very few people I know really live by a lot of these things, and that is something that I myself do, and I see where there's a lot of joy and love. I can see where my mind kind of changes and thinks differently, and a lot. Very open to different things. Should another major catastrophe strike, either as a major natural disaster from our own planet or the skies above or a pandemic, etc., those who depend on the state, shops, cities, computers, television, politicians, big pharma, big everything will be the ones who don't pass on their genes to the future of our species. Those who live smaller, self-sufficient existences will likely be the godfathers of whatever civilization comes after us. That's true. Because if an apocalypse occurs, those that are used to living in their homes with electricity are going to have a hard time surviving. Those that are already living in hunter-gatherer societies, which do exist, are going to be able to survive and then get knowledge from whoever was able to survive with any advanced technology and share that around. So anyway, thanks for, watching this if you did. And as I said certain things, let me know what you think. I'm really curious too. Well, I'm really open to what people think about a lot of these things. Even the thing with the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. To have a debate on this is how it was built. No, this is how it was built is a waste of time. It really shows where I guess people are willing to spend their energy to discover new things and be willing to change their minds because of newer discoveries. Isn't it sad? The church, to say what they said about Galileo, that's like the worst way you could be canceled today. And that's what happened back then, just because he said, hey, I think the earth revolves around the sun. And look what happened to him. And the earth does revolve around the sun. So let me ask you, does the sun revolve around the earth for you, or does the earth revolve around the sun? And where did you get that information? And how do you treat people that think about it otherwise? Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you have a good day. Talk later.